So guys, as I said off camera, congratulations on the film. I watched it on Tuesday. Absolutely incredible, roller coaster of emotions. Now, obviously it was really important to have Christy Martin on set throughout that period. And I know Sydney Sweeney grew a really close relationship with her, and she got to the point where she was ringing her and texting her saying, when are you next going to be on set? Was there any specific moments for either of you that you saw between Christy and Sydney that really stood out? And maybe a piece of advice that Christy gave Sydney that really stuck throughout the process of her performance?
I remember Christy coming down to we had a boxing gym set up in the pre-production office down in the basement so Sydney could train while we were in rehearsals and pre-production. I remember Christy, it might not have been the first time that she'd watched Sydney box, but going down into the kind of bowels of the building to see Sydney training. And I just remember being so nervous, and Christy looked so nervous, and Sydney looked so nervous. Everyone just looked really nervous. But I just saw this sort of moment of relief wash over Christy when she was looking at Sydney, and she was just like, oh, yeah, okay, this is good. Because I think she was really worried about the boxing. But that was kind of a nice moment.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, I could tell before we even started shooting that Sydney was a little bit nervous about Christy being around the production. She hadn't really met Christy properly yet, but just that, sometimes it's quite a responsibility. It's a burden to carry when you're playing a real person, if that person's there watching you the whole time. And I could tell that Sydney was nervous about it, but I also noticed how quickly that shifted when Sydney started to realise, oh no, Christy's here for us. She had properly surrendered to the process and was there and fully available with advice when it was wanted. And Christy was just excited to be there. She was just, I can't believe this is happening. There was one night late in the shoot where we were shooting one of the big arena fights, and it was the same night as the Jake Paul Mike Tyson fight, and Christy was supposed to be commentating on that card, but instead she wanted to hang out with us, and I was like,
it was the second last or the last night of the
shoot, and we were like, I can't believe you're not. And she's like, man, the commentating gigs come and go all the time. When else am I going to have the experience of being around while you guys are all doing this for me?
It's once in a lifetime, isn't it, for her? Once in a lifetime experience. And I don't know if you knew before the casting process for Sydney to get the title role, but she has a major combat sports background herself. She's competed in grappling tournaments. She's done kickboxing since being a young girl. Was that something that kind of gripped you to her? Because I'm guessing she took to the boxing side of things fairly quickly, given that combat sports background.
Yeah, we knew that it would mean we knew she'd hit the ground running. It wouldn't be just like in a reinvention of wheel, but she was still a lot of training to do. Boxing is different to,
of course.
There's a entirely different. It's like a whole different kind of center of balance. And so there was a lot of work to do, but I knew that she would be already comfortable with the prospect of getting hit. And sure enough, as soon as we got into it, she wanted people to hit her. It's almost just so she had a license to hit them back.
What I find really interesting, so I interview a lot of fighters and actors, and I really see a synergy between athletes and actors in terms of the journeys they go on, the mental characteristics they have to succeed in their chosen field. So you have to be resilient, you have to take losses or setbacks in your stride because it's just part of the industry, and you have to have, immense self-belief and motivation to a point of obsession. And I know you've worked with Timothee Chalamet, and he kind of sparked the conversation of having an athlete-coded mindset in his awards-winning speech last year, where he said, listen, maybe I'm not supposed to talk like this, but I want to be one of the all-time greats. And I thought that was really cool because behind closed doors, I do see actors have that. Of course, they're going to have that obsessive mindset to want to succeed. And I think it was cool that he was openly speaking like that. Now, my question to both of you is, do you agree with that, having worked with Christy Martin and obviously worked with Timothee Chalamet, and do you see that obsessive winning mentality in Sydney Sweeney as well?
Yeah. I mean, she's hungry and she wants to do, I mean, maybe it's because she's young, but there's, that she has that abundance of energy. But there's something else. I mean, it's interesting you talk about Chalamet, because I remember having a very similar experience with him before The King, going, this kid's going to need to do a lot of work. He's got accent work, horse riding, fight training. He needs, it wasn't entirely successful. He tried to transform physically, he just couldn't. But I knew he was going to need to do a lot of work, and I could tell within 5 minutes of meeting him that, he's going to do that work. He's going to do it, and he's going to do it hard. And I had the same experience with Sydney. I could just tell she's not a lazy actor being dragged into something, or, as you say, says she'll do the work but then doesn't really want to. I mean, Sydney's got so much going on in her life. She's juggling so many balls, but she just committed fully to this thing from day one. And yeah, I don't know. I just think it's like anything. It's practicing a craft. If you want to be good at it, you got to work. And she works.
Mm. Is that something you both agree with, even from the nature of your jobs as well? You have to be obsessed. You have to be passionate about your craft. Do you see similarities in what you guys do in terms of the mental preparation that athletes have to have? Because on your game day, you can't let it go. Sometimes you've got, whether it's not necessarily on this film, but if you're shooting outside, you've got to get this shot before it goes dark, for example. You've got a certain time frame to get that win on that chosen day.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on the particular comparison, maybe the particular sport, but we've also got to be very sort of like open and collaborative in our work. And I think depending on the type of athlete, whether you're in a team sport or an individual sport, that can be quite different. I think what's an interesting parallel is the sort of game face. And I think everyone has it. Actors obviously have to have a particular kind of public mask, or, they choose to, or they have an online presence. I think it's interesting on set, particularly for directors, in terms of just how leadership is perceived and how often you kind of have to come into that environment really holding your crew and cast in order for them to want to go on that journey with you. So you're kind of putting on a sort of armour in a sense.
What I always notice on set is that I've got adrenaline running, and that's, I don't lie in bed at night when I'm not making a movie dreaming about movies. But when I'm working, my adrenaline is racing, and it's all because of like fear of future embarrassment, fear of failure, and that makes you work.
That drives everyone, really, at the end of the day.